right. Mayor Darcy?
Here.
Councilman Cardenas?
Here.
Ms. Bottomley? Here. Mr. Doris?
Here.
Ms. Gruenberg?
Present.
Ms. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. O'Hara?
Here.
Mr. Parker? Not here. Mr. Pryor?
Here.
Mr. Randich?
Here.
Mr. Rico?
Here.
Dr. Rouse?
Here.
Ms. Walker? Not here. Mr. Stunich?
Here.
Chairman Rolfe?
Here.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the approval of the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee meeting minutes for the February 4th, 2026 meeting.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion is
Sorry,
made. Do we have a second?
All right, Nora, you were motioned?
Sure. Bottomley second.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second for the meeting minutes for February 4th of 2026. I'll do roll. Actually, any discussion? Okay. Mayor Darcy?
Aye.
Councilman Cardenas?
Aye.
Ms. Bottomley?
Yes.
Mr. Doris?
Aye.
Ms. Gruenberg?
Aye.
Ms. Howard?
I'll abstain, I was not present.
Okay. Mr. Martin?
I abstained too, I was not present.
Mr. O'Hara?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Mr. Randich?
I'll have to abstain, I wasn't here either.
Mr. Rico?
I was staying also, I wasn't here.
And, Dr. Rouse?
Aye.
Ms. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Stunich?
Aye.
Chairman Rolfe?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Okay, next is citizens to be heard on agenda items. Looks like we have no one present, so we can move on to old business, which we have none, which brings us to new business. And first on the agenda is Community Workshop number 2, Character Area, and a discussion of Character Area online engagement. I want to welcome again our consultants, Prayag, Leslie, and Katrina, and they are going to lead us through the, both agenda items today. So we'll kick it off to you.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Katrina. I saw many of you at the workshop. Thank you so much for coming out. We had a really great response. So as Jane mentioned, we did the in-person, and then after the in-person, we opened up the opportunity for online feedback. And that was really fantastic because we had about 100 people sign in at the in-person workshop. We probably had a little bit more in attendance. But on the online responses, we had over 160, about 168 people responded. So we were really able to more than double our input from the Character Area workshop. And so that online response was open until March 20. And then we closed it, and we're going through the results now, processing those. So from both the in-person workshop and the online workshop, we're taking that feedback and information, and that will inform the sub-area plans that will the project team will create and be included in the draft plan. The other nice thing about the online versus the virtual workshop was that, you know, we're seeing a lot of kind of in general response from our top zip codes for the in-person, for example, are 60435, 60432, and 60431. On the online, we did have 60431 and 60435 as our top, but we also had 60586, which is much further west. So we were able to reach people who did not come in person and were able to participate online. So that was a really nice addition, and that's feedback that we heard from this committee last time, is wanting to have that robust opportunity for engagement online after that. So happy to share kind of preliminary results or like feedback we got by character area, if that's desired. Yes, I did not. All right, so for Joliet Mall, we heard a lot of desire for kind of this mixed-use destination with multifamily housing, entertainment. We got a lot of feedback that I would kind of categorize as family-friendly entertainment about like arcade or bowling, indoor pool, recreation center, and the desire for kind of improved connectivity, not only for the area, but potentially in the region as well. For Ridge Road, I would say community feedback focused more on development that balances kind of housing with parks and plazas and community amenities. So examples we got for that were the desire for a library branch or a small local grocery store. And a lot of comments around kind of safe pedestrian and bike infrastructure, so safe crossings, but also connections to the areas around Ridge Road in that character area. For the east side, so this is the Cass Street and Henderson Avenue, there was a strong desire to kind of build on the history and culture of the area. So we saw feedback that focused on desire for community-centered development that strengthens the identity of the neighborhood. So an example of that, we got feedback about Daryl's Flea Market, that we would like to keep that but improve it, potentially with a mural or something else that kind of enhances that presence in the neighborhood. We received feedback for the desire for an affordable grocery store. In terms of recreational opportunities, there were a lot of comments about keeping and improving the parks, playgrounds, green space. For Chicago and McDonough, we heard kind of this focus on neighborhood revitalization, improved amenities. So an example of that we heard about like healthcare facility, stronger connection between downtown and the surrounding neighborhoods. So we got feedback about the opportunity for potentially welcome signage. We also got feedback on kind of more focus on the river, potentially as fishing spot to be included there. And then in the in-person workshop, we had a lot of discussion around kind of concerns about housing conditions, the correctional facilities, and really the desire for communication and coordination regarding development in the area. So I'd say those are kind of like the high-level feedback that we got for each one of the character areas that we had at the workshop.
Questions, comments about any of that? I think those were a lot of the things that we heard from individuals as we were at the workshop and as we've had exchange here at the board level about some of the things and the different focus area workshops that we held here in the chambers, where we got much of those same kind of comments, if you will, that I think is very helpful to hear it here and to hear it again, which reinforces that some of those things are really need to be addressed as a part of this process. So thank you. Comments, questions?
Well, I have one comment. Katrina or Leslie or Prayag, could you bring us up to speed about what's next then for these character areas? Just a recap where we're going with this.
So the comments received from the public workshop will be incorporated into the character areas in a concept plan. So we'll be able to show sort of what the physical reproductions of the comments that we received mean to those different areas. These will be sort of conceptual diagrams, so they won't identify specific architectural typologies or building usage, et cetera. It's more about in the sort of storyline of the comprehensive plan, it will be more focused along land use and preferred development patterns.
Okay.
Jane?
Yeah.
Just for my information, so we pulled out these particular areas. Is that part of the overall plan, or is this like a section that by itself kind of thing?
Good question. I mean, there'll be physical, as Leslie was saying, there'll be a physical roadmap for each of those areas. This process and project has taken community feedback and feedback from the existing conditions report of this project so far, and I would say like tested those out in these different character areas. So it is interwoven, but there will be separate, if you could, I guess you want to think about it, the separate section of just the character areas, but at the same time, they are melding in what this whole project is about.
It will be highlighted.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Leslie, but.
No, you're totally right. I was just going to add to what you're saying, because we're going to go over the outline today. But there will be overarching strategies, actions, policies for the whole city that apply to the whole city. The idea behind the character areas is that we wanted to identify specific examples of how you can implement some of those policies and strategies in areas that are replicated throughout the city. So sometimes it's easier for people to understand because the city is large and there's a lot going on. It's easier to, we wanted to give you a tool for implementation that was easier to understand. And so the idea behind the character areas are, they are examples of ways that you can apply strategy and policy to specific areas of the city that then can be replicated in other areas of the city with similar characteristics. So it will be the whole, and you will get overall overarching strategies and actions, and you will also get a little bit lower to the ground conceptual ideas about how to implement, how to apply those strategies to specific areas of the city.
I mean, personally, I really like that. I mean, and I think that, you know, for somebody like me, I'd rather see, you know, what do we need to do out west that would improve the lives of people there? What do we need? I mean, sort of the areas that you're talking about. That's why, I mean, almost as an appendix or something, it'd be nice to have that as part of the document so that people can see the overall, but it, you know, this is how it applies.
Yeah.
And I don't know, to me, that's more important than the overall. I mean, what's in it for me, right?
Right.
Everybody thinks that.
It's very challenging for people to take a document that is as comprehensive as the full plan and be able to know where to start. So we really want this to be usable and accessible for not just, you know, city officials, let's say. We want neighborhood groups and other folks that have been involved, other stakeholders that have been involved with this process to feel personally engaged with the plan. And so that was one of the reasons why we wanted to pick a few character areas that then could be replicated throughout the city to do exactly what you just said, to make sure that it was personal, that people could understand how to engage with the plan, that there was something that it was easy to understand, and there was graphic representation of what these strategies meant. Because the other thing is that in plans with a lot of words, you know, and you've seen some of the documents that we've created, sometimes it's hard to keep your people's attention for that long. And so being able to show them graphic images that characterize what the ideal sort of desired development patterns, the proposed land uses, the level of density, those are diagrams that are much more accessible. And, you know, like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's a similar idea. So we're giving folks who engage with this plan a variety of ways to understand its contents.
I think that's good. And I think the idea of what's in it for me, right, I think really requires a solid communication plan be built into this as well. Because if people don't know about it, they're not going to know it's for them. And I think the communication of this whole plan has to be one that is a continual effort to keep people apprised of what's going on, whether it's one character zone or another one. Because we've seen on other subject areas recently where hundreds of people show up and, well, we don't have so many here, but I think that underscores the level of importance that is not understood by the general community. And I get it, 150 or 160 showing up is great, but that communication is going to be critical on the implementation side of this. Tear it down, build it up.
I also want to, I don't want to discount the amount of response that we've had with the surveys that we've conducted also. I mean, the first survey that we had, had over 2,000 responses. The surveys that we're collecting just off this one workshop in a parallel format to the in-person collected over twice as many responses as the in-person workshop. So I think that, those communication methods and allowing folks an opportunity to participate in the way that best suits them is the way that we've been able to reach people. And I think that the combined level of interaction with the plan is exceptional. It really, what we have found is that people have been taking advantage of the dual formats, and the suggestion to do a dual format for the second workshop has proven to be successful. The other thing that was interesting about the dual format for this particular workshop is that there wasn't that much difference between the responses we received in person and the responses we received online on preference, on program elements, etc. And so being able to extend the process to allow more people to participate in a way that is convenient to them is, I think, for the community has been very, very successful. And moving forward with this process and thinking about what a broader communication strategy looks like, we would like to continue to do those dual formats because we realize that not everybody is able to get to a place at a time in person, but their interest in participation in the plan is still there. And so being able to give more residents an opportunity to participate is one of the goals of the plan.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is to discuss or have a presentation about the draft plan outline and the key policy recommendations framework. So there was a memo that was emailed out, as well as there's a copy at your seat. So Leslie, you wanna
Cool, just keep talking then.
just keep talking?
So all of you, thank you, Jane, for distributing the draft plan outlining key policy recommendations. This is a major milestone in the course of this planning process, and it's finally getting to that point that you all have been waiting for, where we start putting the whole thing together into something that looks like a comprehensive plan. We intentionally take an iterative approach to putting a plan of the scale and the size together because it's really important that we're thoughtful about the contents of this approach, and we understand the nuance of the integration of key topic areas. And so the draft plan really begins to put together the pieces of the puzzle that create an integrated and responsive plan that is reflective of what we've heard from public engagement, your input, as well as other conversations that we've had in focus groups, in one-on-one with the councils, et cetera. So we're hoping that this reflects what you've seen and heard to date, and also meets your expectations for the content that will be a part of this plan. The content of this plan is structured into chapters. It is comprehensive of the entire planning process. We like to start out with a welcome to Joliet, an acknowledgement of the folks that have participated and dedicated their time to this process, including you all. We'd like to have a message from the mayor. We think this is important for supporting the plan. And then we do an overview and purpose of the plan. This is why are we doing this? Who cares? Why does it matter to you? We answer those questions in this section of the plan. It also gives readers an understanding of how to use the plan. So by chapter, by strategy, what do each one of these pieces and parts means, and how should they be applied to a whole variety of situations and projects that you'll come across now and in the future. Chapter 6 is the planning process. This is what we've been doing over the last, 18 months by the time we get through this. And then finally, we get into the key policy recommendations. We've structured those for you in this outline, so we'll walk through those together. And then Chapter 8 are the character area plans. These are the conceptual plans that we talked about a little bit earlier. Chapter 9 is implementation. You will not see that in this outline. Generally, we like to create a draft plan first and come to consensus and agreement on the policy, strategies, and actions that we will be accomplishing in the plan. And then the final plan will have an implementation chapter in it that includes roles and responsibilities, timelines, and where order of magnitude cost is known. We like to add that in also. The implementation plan will also have a strategy for how to implement, what is the priority, what do we want to do first, second, third, fourth. We always want the city to be able to be opportunistic if other funding tools or resources become available, but we also want to know what step 1 is. And so the implementation plan will help give you a roadmap for that. The appendix is going to be probably twice as thick as the actual comprehensive plan. This is where all of the additional resources, the memos, the summaries, that's where all of that lives. So you will have a record of all of the different pieces and parts that went into making this plan in the appendix. The next part of your outline in front of you are the comprehensive plan priorities. This is a reminder. So we want to always return to the basis of where the draft plan is coming from. These 7 priorities have been followed through in all of the documents that we've created in the vision and goals, in the existing conditions. These priorities continue to be through lines as we move into the draft plan. We also recognize that the priorities have sort of cross-cutting ideas. For example, workforce affects housing, it affects economic development, it affects education. So we also want to make sure that the draft plan acknowledges and recognizes that there is integration between some of these priorities, and the key strategies and actions will address those. The next section of the outline is sort of the meat and potatoes of Chapter 7 of the document. This is the key strategies and actions. We have identified a vision for each one of the key strategies, and we have identified the strategies for each one of these sections. We have not yet decided on actions yet. We will continue to develop those through the draft plan. What we're really looking for from you today is to review the vision for each one of these key priorities. We are also looking for your feedback on the preliminary strategies that you can see for each one of these 7 priorities. The actions we will fill in, you will see those in the draft plan, but we want to make sure that the strategies are reflective of your expectations for each one of the priorities. The first one and the key priorities are the numbered, each numbered sort of heading, bold heading that you see are each one of the priorities, and then you can see underneath that each one of the preliminary strategies. Some of the priorities have more strategies than others. It just sort of depends on, as we look backwards in the work that we've done, what is truly going to capture, what do we truly need to capture for each one of those priorities. I'm not going to read through each one of the strategies, but for your homework over the next few weeks, we'd love you to take a read through and just make sure that we're capturing sort of the big bullets appropriately. And as I mentioned, each one of the priorities now has a vision statement and a little blurb that describes really what we're trying to accomplish. So for each one of the priorities, it is structured in the same way. The last section is about policy contents and graphics. So this is policy contents and graphics are by topic. The area in red are what those graphics would be. It's more for internal use. Some of these policy contents really just need a narrative. For example, if it's a best practice like ADUs, accessory dwelling units, or aging in place. But if it is a policy recommendation that actually needs to be captured graphically in a map. If it needs to be located, we will create those appropriate graphics. Each one of the policy contents will be integrated into the strategies and actions. This is a running list of subtopics that we wanted to make sure were integrated into the draft plan. For example, density has been a part of the conversation within the comprehensive plan since the beginning. We did not feel it needed to be elevated to a strategy itself, sort of writ large as a bold heading. But we do want to define what density means to the city of Joliet, what appropriate levels of density look like, where density should be located, et cetera. And so this is a part of the policy recommendations that will be integrated into this first section under strong neighborhoods and housing stability. Similarly, preferred housing typologies. We have done, some visual preference. We've had many conversations about what types of housing are appropriate for the city and where. We did not feel like this was a big, bold heading, but it was a policy recommendation that needed to be addressed in the strategies. So that's why you see it under policy contents and graphics. Each one of these sections is structured the same. The second priority is economic development and local investment. You can see there's a variety of strategies here that you're welcome to read through. And then the policy contents are generally focused on economic development policy that are subtopics to the priority. For example, coordination with TOD. We don't feel like we need to visit the work that has already been done to create the, less than a year-old TOD study, but we do want to acknowledge the preferences, the locations, the connectivity and accessibility of that particular effort. So we put that under economic development. Similarly, with innovation and emerging industries, this is not a strategy in itself. This is a policy that we recognize needs to be integrated into the economic development thinking about the future of the city. And so this will be integrated into the strategies that you see above. The third priority is community connection and belonging. This is something that we heard many, many times in a lot of different ways. It's a complex and diverse opportunity within the city, and there are a variety of strategies that address this particular priority. There are some policy contents that we'd like to integrate into this particular priority, including arts and placemaking, history and legacy, civic and educational institutions. These are important parts of the functioning and quality of life of the city of Joliet, but they are not standalone. We made a decision to make them not standalone strategies. They are policies that can be integrated into the strategies that you see above. The fourth priority is investing in all neighborhoods. This is about land use and future development. This is where your future land use map will live. This is where there will be some zoning considerations. We do want to make recommendations where there's incompatibility with desired land use and zoning, where the zoning needs to change. Again, you all know by now this is not a zoning ordinance update, but this will give you some recommendations of a next step after this plan is adopted. Unincorporated areas and greenfield development, this is something we talked about. It is not a strategy on its own because it integrates into other strategies. This is a policy, so we want to make sure to capture some of those ideas. Infill development, same thing. There's lots of ways that we can do infill development in the city, and they are not all the same way. So creating, helping a reader understand what we mean when we say infill development and where this should happen will be a part of the policy conversation in the comprehensive plan. Similar with adaptive reuse. There's lots to say about this. There are broader strategies for the whole city that incorporate adaptive reuse, and then this policy will help narrow down where there are opportunities and define what those opportunities are. The fifth priority is mobility and access across the city. This is your transportation mobility chapter. There are a variety of strategies related to accessibility, connectivity. This is also multimodal, so walking, biking, trail systems, etc. And then you can see some of the policy contents for this particular chapter below. This is, we do want to talk about micro-mobility, we want to talk about shared mobility, we want to talk about, trails and paths. There's a very active biking community in Joliet, so we want to make sure that the recommendations that we've heard for connectivity or other amenities are incorporated into this chapter. Employer-sponsored transit is something that we've heard along the way. Some of our survey responses mention this. It's not a big enough topic area to be a standalone strategy, but it integrates with other opportunities related to transportation and mobility and really economic development. And of course, emerging technologies. This is a plan that Joliet's going to use for the next several decades. So we do want to address what EV means, what infrastructure means, et cetera. The sixth priority is environment and natural resources. This is sustainability and environmental resilience. There's a vision for that, and there's a variety of strategies that integrate many of the ideas that we've talked about throughout the process related to resiliency. And the policy contents directly relate to that. We look at public infrastructure, community assets. Again, these are not standalone strategies. These are policies that will be integrated into those strategies above. The next priority is utilities and infrastructure. We heard from a certain person that there's a big goal for this project, a city of 200,000 residents. We wanted to make sure and capture that somewhere in the comprehensive plan, so this is where you see that. There are a variety of strategies to get us there, and then policies that we need to look at to make sure that we're prepared for population growth, that we maintain a high quality of life as population grows, and that we're able to accommodate the different needs of future residents. And then the last chapter is implementation and governance. You will see this in the final plan, not the draft plan, but this gives you a roadmap of the how to get there. What are we doing first? Who's doing it? How are we going to create those coalitions and partnerships to make sure that we're successful in accomplishing the strategies from the other priorities. And there are a few, best practices and policy contents for that as well. We want to give you an implementation matrix. We want to make sure that partners know what their roles and responsibilities are. The city of Joliet staff cannot do this by themselves, so we also want to make sure that there is accountability and responsibility on the part of the many who will be supporting implementation of this effort. So this is the preliminary draft of what the contents of the first draft comprehensive plan will look like. As with all of our deliverables, you will not only have one chance to look at this, to reflect on it, to provide comment, to make sure that we've captured your expectations accurately. We want to make sure that this is responsive and reflective of the work that we've done to date, and also make sure that we're not leaving anything out. So as you're taking a closer read through, if you're seeing gaps, if you're looking at something and you're just like, I don't get it, or this is wrong, or hey, maybe we need to change this to something else, please make sure and let us know that. This is the guide that we will be writing the draft plan from. So it's really important that this outline makes sense and integrates the work that we've done before in a way that is intuitive.
Good.
Yeah. Is this a good
You've given
point?
us a lot to think about.
So, do you want us to discuss, I know you're telling us to give some feedback to you. Is this the time and place to do that, or are you asking us to do this offline?
I think it can be both, right?
I think now if
What
you
would
have
you prefer,
comments,
Jane?
I would say if people are here, so if you have things to talk about, but as Leslie said, this is not the final time. So if you have something else that comes to mind later, you can share that with myself, and then we'll get it to the consultants, and we can also revisit it again at the May meeting. But this was given in advance, so I would say, yeah.
So can we go to strategy 2 under the neighborhoods? First, I'm going to apologize. I don't want to wordsmith, and I've also had 2 months away, so I've got a lot of time on my hands and really refreshed. I'm actually struggling with strategy 2. I know the buzzword of affordable housing. It's a national crisis. It's a state crisis. It's a city crisis. I get it. But affordable housing, to me, sounds like good health. I want everybody to have good health, but it doesn't really talk about all of the components that go in. There's so many things that go into affordable housing: good jobs, interest rates, housing stock, people have a down payment, able to manage, what it takes to own a house and upkeep it and all that. My issue is, I've been in banking, was in banking a long time, and as Jim, '08 and '09 sort of showed us what, everyone owning a house could do to the economy. And so I don't think there's anybody in the world that would say we don't need more affordable housing. I'm not against that. But I'm having a problem because it says here to meet diverse needs and prevent displacement. What are we doing to attract the 200,000 more people? We're losing people all the time. We have our own city staff who don't buy houses in Joliet because we don't have the housing stock that they're looking for, so they go elsewhere. We have seniors who, these aren't necessarily, they could be middle income, they could be other incomes, who are leaving to go to developments that other communities are offering that we don't. How do we capture that? And I guess my problem with 2 is, if I'm a developer and I start looking at your plan, I guess if I'm only going to do middle income housing, I probably will go somewhere else to build some other housing stock, because it sounds like that's what the city's after. So I would like to see personally that reworked into, housing stock that's available in many facets for many different areas. And I get affordable housing, and I agree with it. But I don't know, that's the second that's the second strategy that we're going to work under in this document. And I think there are other things that we should be doing along with that. And so I guess I just would like to know how we capture that in a strategy.
Just one point of clarification. The order of the strategies are currently arbitrary. They are not in order of priority.
I don't care if it's first or sixth. I'm just asking about how do we capture, I'm more concerned for the city to attract more, as the mayor says, we need 200,000 more people to move in here. How are we open for business to developers of all income levels or all housing levels that will allow us to do that?
So can I jump in here? Because I think the conversation is more about balance. And to give you a data-based look at this, I track this since the year 2000, last 25 years. City of Joliet, 15,664 single-family building permits, 1,178 multifamily. Last 25 years, 15 times, right? That is.
But what are
our
the
state
price
of
range
play.
of those homes, Doug? The housing stock that we developed, were they $400,000 houses or $200,000 houses?
Well, this is a 25-year time period, so they've changed dramatically, but I can tell you they're up 45 to 50% over the last 5 to 6 years.
I don't know
right?
what that means. What is the dollar figure?
Countywide, we're probably 360,000 right now. Joliet's on median sale price. Joliet is probably a little bit back of that. I can pull that for you. I don't have that as readily available at the city level, but Nora does.
But that's my point.
But-
my point is balance.
Well, okay, but that's the point of this conversation. We've been out of balance for a really long time, and it's not unique to Joliet, it's not unique to Will County, it's not unique to northeastern Illinois, right? I don't think, being on the front line of this as long as I have, I don't think that we have a problem attracting single-family developers, right? Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't think we do. Additionally, I'm concerned that you seem to be conflating affordable and ownership, right? Which is also an important distinction, right? Ownership isn't what everybody's looking for, right? You talk about seniors downsizing. My grandma didn't want to own anymore, right? Wanted to be in a different kind of product. Was able to find one in her community, but like that's, I think the point is diversification, right? Across the board. And I understand that you're concerned that, you know, hey, we need to develop more single family. Joliet has been a top 20 single family developing community in this state for the last few decades, right? It's just sort of across the board. We're not missing those opportunities, in my opinion.
I don't agree with you, but we can
I mean,
agree to disagree.
I think the data sort of backs my position there, but
Data
okay.
does bear out that we're losing out on young professionals, that we're losing the 18 to 35 because there's nowhere for them to live. They don't necessarily want to purchase large single-family homes at the $300,000 plus rate. They're more interested in naturally occurring rental housing that they can afford and then move towards home ownership when the time is right. That single-family home ownership is not everyone's ideal right now, and being mobile and having opportunities to move up and down the housing ladder is something that we need, and we don't have that without housing diversity, different typologies, single-family, multifamily, at every price point. We're missing that diversity here.
And that's the important bit. All of the above.
Can we change the
I want
strategy?
all of the above.
Can we change strategy to reflect what you're saying?
My recommendation would be to just say, expand housing options to meet diverse needs and prevent displacement. And then with underneath that, there's going to be a variety of action items that would, I think, speak to the affordable, the missing middle, the special needs housing, upper income. So, I mean, to me, that would be, that strategy would capture all those housing options.
And that's my point. My point is, right now, it appears like we're looking for the middle income. We're concerned about that. I think we should be concerned about, I mean, we should be trying to attract other people.
Other than middle?
Yeah.
I think we're getting stuck on the word affordable. And we've had this conversation before in that it's affordable in layers. You know, we've got a housing need for the folks that are working in our warehouses. We've got a housing need for our seniors. It's got to be affordable on both those spectrums. And then you've got professionals that we haven't built towards their affordability, which is more the upper income. And I think when we get stuck on this word affordable, we get to thinking only base affordability. When I really think that we have to continue to use Doug's term balance. The city, for some reason, has been against rental properties for the last 20 years. It's frustrated me because I've asked repeatedly to have the city start looking at rental properties. You get kids coming out of nursing school, teachers, they got to move somewhere else. Around us, they've got thousands of apartments, but we're in this doggone block where we've mentally stopped building apartments. And to me, that's been a real problem for the city for 20 years. And I've heard some of our council members poo-poo it like, we don't need it. We do need it.
Middle housing doesn't have to be apartments. It can be townhomes, cluster homes. This is missing middle housing, is not single family and not large scale multifamily. It's what is in the middle. And that doesn't, we don't have that, Steve.
So I think
you're right. We don't have places for seniors to move either. And that is an issue. And I don't think that is not included in affordable and middle housing, because many seniors don't want to be pushed off on the ice floe and move to Shady Acres. They still want to live in integrated communities. Some do want those 55-plus communities, and that's super. But this kind of middle housing integrates all of these needs.
Would it upset anybody if we took that strategy and simply deleted affordable and middle income?
Yes. That would
It
be
said
awful.
expand housing options
For all.
to meet the changing needs
I
of
do
our
think we need
community.
to define what is missing, though.
Yeah.
Well, I think the action items that are underneath that would address the different
Those will
buckets. That's,
define it.
I mean, Leslie, what's your read? I mean, the strategies are gonna be, there's gonna be action items under each strategy that would, I would think, speak
That
to
are
the.
more specific.
Yeah,
So if you generalize the strategy, we can be more specific in the action. So if you change the strategy, for example, to expand housing options, we can have actions that are related to the balance between multifamily and single family. We can address missing middle. We can address increasing home ownership. We can address building new housing to attract new residents, et cetera.
But I don't want us to remove affordability and the missing middle and not address those issues. So if it's not on here, it's not going to be addressed. So it does need to stay, and maybe it's not in the actual strategy, but if we can add it in one of the actions, I don't want to see that affordability removed completely.
Agreed.
Well, I would agree too. And the notion of the abject feeling that rentals are such a pariah in a city has been interesting to watch city council over the years that I've been here. It's like they want to get rid of as many, rentals. They don't want people to have rentals. I'm a renter, okay? That doesn't mean I don't pay property tax. My rent has gone up every flipping year I've been here. I'm paying property tax. I'm still part of the community. I'm still a resident. But renters are not viewed as residents in Joliet. It's a mindset that is not okay.
That's
And
not unique to Joliet.
And I would agree, though, the notion of affordable and middle income does involve renters as well as owners who are all residents.
And we
of
need
an
to remember
inclusive
that
community.
rent is often more expensive than mortgages.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think for those of you that, most of you have been around here a long time, I experienced the growth of the rental housing and how the rental housing went downhill in Joliet over the numerous years.
Due to
Whether it was the
mismanagement.
Willow Bridge in Crest Hill or whether it was the former Park Avarice. Those were crime-ridden rental housing. So there's a good reason, and so much of the landlord housing, I won't say all of it, but I see that problem every day with the rentals, where they don't upkeep their property. I see some good examples that were bad before. Right across from the Barcelona, those guys turned around a 48 apartment unit. It's now high-quality apartments. I'll say it was a hole 20 years ago. We live next door to that. But there's a whole slew of bad apartments in Joliet. And people have how do I want to say, they've developed an animosity because of the poor ownership and the poorly run apartments
Do they
in
share
Joliet.
that same animosity to owner-occupied residences that don't meet their standards?
Owner-occupied? No, I don't think so.
I think there are plenty of code violations to be found in owner-occupied properties, and I'm wondering if they experience the same stigma, and if that Citizen View app is being used to its best use. I think that this is a tool that the city has that anyone can use it to say, hey, I'm seeing a code violation. We need someone to show up, and someone will show up. So
You brought up a good point.
this is, again, though, I think if you look at the data, owner-occupied properties probably rank higher in complaints with the city than rental housing. But the rental housing is constantly stigmatized. Not to say that there are never any problems, but it's always the landlords and the renters, and it's never the neighbors who are also failing to meet these standards of their neighbors and the way that they upkeep their property.
I think if the city can do one big thing to change that stigma, is to go back to a proactive inspection policy.
I agree.
For all types of housing.
Yeah.
And isn't
rather
that what the
than a
Citizen View
reactive.
app is for, is to help to facilitate that?
That's a reactive.
That-
That's a reactive policy.
I
can drive up and down the streets and see violation after violation in rental properties. That is why.
But you're not looking, are you looking at the owner occupied
I see the
properties?
owner occupied.
But you don't care, because they own that property,
No, but
so-
you notice. I'm sorry, Nora, do you live in Joliet?
I live in a suburb of Joliet.
Okay.
Well, I live in Joliet, and I see owner-occupied residents that are not upkeeping their properties. I've submitted citizen view requests on said properties, and they still look the same.
Can I just put a positive spin on this? I want to give credit to the team for including better code enforcement and landlord accountability as priorities in this document. Those things are expensive, make no mistake, right? To actually make happen, you have to put a lot of resources into making that go. But I think everybody at the table is identifying how important that priority is. And as we go through prioritization, Leslie, this one's directed at you. Like, I don't know how we'll do like cost-benefit analysis when it comes to prioritization, but what I'm hearing and what we hear a lot locally is that's a big one to actually put resources behind. It won't be an easy decision, I think, for the city to actually financially prioritize that, but clearly it matters. So credit to you for putting it out there, and hopefully we see that near the top of the priority list.
Can I make one comment on the housing stuff? You know, we can sit around and talk about it all we want. The governor has made housing a priority, and conversations about not wanting rentals or not liking different types of things. If the governor gets the proposal that he has through the legislature, you're not going to have a choice anymore. And it's directly in response to conversations around complaints about rentals, complaints about multifamily, that communities aren't doing enough. We're trying to fight that back as hard as we can, but his proposal will allow all kinds of things by right to go in neighborhoods, and they don't care if it fits the character of the neighborhood or anything else. There's no exceptions for that. So either we get with the program and figure out a way to provide diverse housing stock and meet those needs, or we're going to get it shoved down our throat, and no one's going to like the way that that turns out. So I think either we start to get on board with this and use words like affordable or attainable or whatever we want to say, but if we don't do it, the results are going to be terrible.
My suggestion would be that when we look at this, when these phases that we are in, those of you at the table who may be subject now, well, I should preface this by saying, Jane and Dustin, I'm not trying to create extra work for you. Start by saying that. But I think that like when we get to these phases, if there are individuals at the table who have seen this stage implemented well within another context, to be able to say, hey, you all, here's an example of how this looks. And it's been done well. So a lot of the things that we debate about, I think one of our issues, and has been our issues as a lifetime resident of Joliet, is we are extremely insular. Like, we try to figure it all out ourselves, and we usually bend toward our personal preferences. But the world is much smaller now because of digital media. Like, there are easy ways to look to the left and to the right and to grab an example. So a lot of the things that we complain about is not unique to Joliet. But like, there have been people who have rectified those things extremely well, and we just keep going round and round and round about something that there's an answer to. So like, if there are people at the table who can say, hey, I've seen this done well in another city, I've seen this done well as a part of another comprehensive plan, like, that's why so many young adults are leaving Joliet. It's because they're on the internet. They're on social media, so they know where to go to get what they're looking for. Versus like, you know, previous generations, they had to actually see it. And like, you know, they had to go there, they had to be there and say, oh, I think this is another option. This generation will book a whole apartment. I mean,
Sight unseen.
Close on homes online, sight unseen. And I think that's one of the things that we have to understand. Like, this isn't rocket science at this point. It's literally doing a Google search. It's literally going, like, searching a hashtag, and you can see cities that have done this well. Ron Kitchens has a book called Community Capitalism of how Kalamazoo, Michigan did this same exact thing. Like, there are tons of examples of balanced, well development, whether you want to call it affordable, attainable, whatever the case may be. There are millions of examples, but we have to stop being so insular and acting like Joliet's history is the answer.
I want to make one comment. Kalamazoo, Michigan, they had the added benefit of, I think, Western Michigan University, large universities there. They had Upjohn Pharmaceuticals, and I think they have Stryker Medical. They started this probably 30 years ago to put a lot of goodwill from those large entities into the community to make them better. And offer, and they've done a great job of it. And there are a number of Fortune 500 companies, maybe they have warehouses, maybe they have other distribution facilities in and around Joliet. Maybe they could be part of this collaborative effort long-term to help address some of this stuff.
But those strategies in Kalamazoo were not created because a few people at the table made the decision. It was because they reached out, they expanded, they brought everybody together to say, hey, what we've been doing has only worked for a few. So let's bring some diverse minds to the table and develop in a way. And they saw, hey, we can make the same amount of money if we just bring everybody to the table and develop more comprehensively. And I think I'm not looking at detail by detail exactly what they did. I'm looking more at strategy, how they approached it. And I think that that's one of the things we may be missing is, like, we're trying to approach this differently. If we keep, a Phillips screwdriver is going to do the same thing every time. I don't care how much, if you keep on using the same tool, you're going to keep getting the same result. And I think that's where we're being challenged and we're being stretched on this. And it's okay. I think the discomfort is very okay. Because I think context matters too. Because when I stand in my church and I have a ton of millennials in my church, like, they're not looking for $400,000 DR Horton houses. They can't afford them. They got to be making $180,000 a year as a couple to afford that, to get approved for that. So, like, they're not looking for that. And a lot of them don't want to buy. But, like, if I want to rent a place, a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, just a decent apartment with just a 1-car garage, like, I'm going to Bolingbrook. I'm going to go to New Lenox. I'm going to go to Lockport. And then I'm going to pay $2,200 a month for 1,000 square feet. I think that's what we're missing, and we got to start listening to some of these younger voices because, like, senior housing is going to be the boom next. We got to start listening to some of these younger voices, and they're not going to keep arguing with us. They're just going to keep leaving.
Right.
Yep. And we're seeing that in the data.
I watch all these young adults that go to my church. They're driving in. They don't want to live in Joliet because they're looking like, what can I afford? I think that when we say affordable, I'm not talking about like Section 8 housing. I'm not talking about people who are on subsidized housing. I'm talking about young adults who work, who have jobs, but they are not trying to buy a $400,000 house.
Nurses, teachers,
Yes.
new graduates, early career people.
Most of my nurses, they go to my church, they got a ton of student loans. So they're paying that, and they're trying to afford rent too. I think that's what we mean when we say affordable. We're not talking about Section 8 housing all the time.
Oh, and I'm not saying that either. I'm saying you need.
But I think that's the elephant in the room.
But I would like to also remind everyone that Section 8 housing has higher standards for their housing provision. Landlords have higher standards, and the tenants also have higher standards. There are punitive measures for not being able to achieve these standards, and those who have vouchers still pay part of the rent too. They are working people trying to get to the next stage, and they should not be stigmatized. They should be supported, and integrated housing has much better outcomes. So this stigma is exactly why the state passed the source of income law, because they are working, they are achieving a standard of living that allows them to have this help, that they can hopefully get to the next step and not have any reliance on government assistance. And that is something that we hear time and time again in village halls and city halls, that we don't want them coming here. They are us. We are all one disaster away from needing help unless you're super blessed, and many of us are not. So when we talk about those people in Section 8, they are us.
So Nora, I just want to, looks like you're talking to me.
Yes, very much so.
I was Director of Finance for the Housing Authority of Joliet. I know very well all the programs that the City of Joliet, or the Housing Authority of Joliet offered.
Hang on a second, Nora. I never directed this conversation around that we shouldn't have affordable housing. All I'm
Kind of
saying.
did.
No,
You
I,
took
no,
extreme offense at affordable housing being in the strategy, which to me says that I understand that you want to see more options for wealthy seniors, and those options should be available.
But they're not.
Absolutely, and they should be.
But they're not.
Not at the expense of everyone. We cannot focus on only one type,
I think,
and that's what
again,
middle
we're
housing
stuck on
is.
affordable. Let's
But-
understand it's going to be
but
balanced.
That's offensive to me. I've
Well,
been in
then
this, I live in this community, and I've been here for 69 years, okay? I take offense at someone who tells me, as a person that worked in this town for 41 years, whether or not I think that affordable housing is not available or not. You have no right, you don't even know me.
You said this.
Okay,
I am
okay.
responding to what
Time
you
out.
said.
Time out. This is a very passionate subject.
Well, let me finish, Jim.
No, wait.
No, I got the floor. All I started with was, I would like to see the strategy 2 expanded for all housing. I never said it should be excluding any housing.
Well, you took offense at affordable
I don't like the
and middle
word
housing.
because I don't know what the word means.
It's true. Well, how lucky for you to not know what affordable means.
Shame on you.
Right back at you.
Okay. We know that the housing is a very important subject. We know that this strategy needs to be massaged. We're going to see more on it, and we want the same passion on all of the other things that we're going to talk about here. Because if we don't do the other things, it doesn't matter how good our housing is. If the opportunities for people aren't here, I don't care what kind of housing we have, they're not going to stay here. So we need to be thinking a little more broadly in that regard, but I want the same passion on all these other subjects because, hey, I'm glad when I hate a silent room. So this is good. This is good. And I'm the one that said take affordable out because as a banker, it was always look at the income. Can they afford to be in the house, the apartment, or whatever it is the individuals were trying to rent? I grew up in a 2-bedroom house with 7 brothers and sisters, so I understand what affordable housing is, okay? And we need to make sure, it's like air, water, and housing need to all be readily available for whoever is here and at whatever price point they can manage. I think that's important to recognize. That's all different types of housing. I think diverse, et cetera. We spent enough time on housing. Are we going to try to go through this whole thing today?
Well, we did, so this is the time for anyone to, to bring up something that you want to talk
Yeah.
about. I think we covered the housing part, at least that one, pretty well right now.
Well, there are some immediate needs, and I think Boise's point on code enforcement is something that we as a city need to fix now, because I really see a weakness in the city there. And I'm going to take that as strongly as I did the word affordable, which comes in several layers. But there are things we need to do there. And speaking of our now, where are we at with Urban 3?
Well, where are we at with Urban 3? The staff team reviewed as a team their draft final presentation that talked about expenses, the expense side of the equation. About a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we provided a lot of feedback because we, as a staff, want this to be received and in a productive way. They weren't ready for prime time. We gave them a lot of feedback. We're going to take a beat, let them incorporate what we've shared with them. The short answer is we are looking to have this unveiled and presented to council and to various civic community groups the first week in June, on Monday, June 1st.
Would it start here, or is it going to start somewhere else and we see it second?
right now, the conversation is that this would be presented to council at the pre-council meeting, and then there would be opportunities to have subsequent presentations while Joe Mikazi, the owner of the firm, is in town for that 72-hour period.
Can you do a 2-sentence, 3-sentence summary of what is Urban 3?
Sure.
Or the economic analysis of
Yeah,
what
so-
is, for people who don't know.
So, Urban 3 is a firm that marries data analytics, financial analysis, and geospatial mapping tools, right? So what they are able to do is look at every parcel in the city of Joliet, and they've done this multiple places. We're not on the bleeding edge of anything. They've done this successfully in many, many states and many countries. So they look at individual parcels, the use of those parcels, specific to those retailers. They look at property tax produced, sales tax produced. So you can see, what each parcel is, its financial productivity, I would say is the best term, right? So they can look at this and we'll present, these are the different types of land use you have in your community. You have single-family detached residential, you have mixed use, you have commercial, you have small-scale commercial, you have large format commercial, you have industrial. And per acre, this is the interesting metric, right? Per acre, this is how productive this particular kind of land use is, right? And then on the other side of the equation, you have how much does it cost to facilitate this particular use in this particular context, right? So you have a large format retailer that academically we can see, hey, this produces a significant amount of sales tax revenue. Well, it doesn't produce a significant amount of property tax, right? Because it's just a big square. And the amount of infrastructure that is inside the ground and on top of the ground to facilitate the use of that. They look at the life cycle costs of that and say, if you wanted to maintain this at a standard level of acceptability in the community, this is what it costs per year. So now you have some debits and credits, right? And now you can look at, by both land use and parcel and geographic area, what sections, what uses, what parcels are net productive and what are, I don't want to say subsidized because speaking of charged words, but require more investment than they produce, which isn't necessarily a negative thing. That's just a choice. So that is going to be, just my short explanation was what? We're clocking in at a minute and a half. So the actual presentation.
You're doing better than I would, though.
So the actual presentation is going to be every bit of an hour, right? Like this is very dense, but it's also very useful and actionable data that policymakers can use, that staff can use to bring informed recommendations to groups like this advisory committee, to the plan commission, and to the city council ultimately for consideration based on what really is. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay.
In other words, we're going to know what our now looks like so we can figure out what our next should look like.
Yep.
And it's a really cool 3D mapping. It's really going to bring us a whole lot of light into what we're doing right now and then help us figure out what to do next as we go through this process as well.
If you haven't looked at it, urban3.com will give you some samples of what's out there, because I looked at one recently for Rochester, Minnesota, the home of the Mayo Clinic. And I had this vision of Rochester, Minnesota because of the Mayo Clinic being incredibly large. And it's about, give or take, the same size as Joliet. And found it very interesting how they did what Dustin just described in terms of looking at all the parcels. So if you haven't looked at it and you have a minute or two to plug in on it, I would do that before it comes here so that you have a sense of what it is. I think it does describe some things that are very helpful as we continue the debate, because all these subjects, zoning and ordinances, got to be a big part of this plan, because we know ordinances and zoning have not been looked at for many years. They will drive what we do in the future. And either Either we have a welcoming center for people to come, or we don't. But they'll be all around us, and we'll wonder why we couldn't. So a lot of important information is in here, but far more needs to be incorporated into it, because all of these aren't final, without question, in my mind. What's next, Jane?
Well, I mean, again, is there any other comments on this? You started to frame it up perfectly. I mean, you have your priorities, you have preliminary strategies that go with each of these priorities, and then I think we all need to think that within each of these strategies, there'll be multiple actions, or you can even think of them as sub-strategies. So as Leslie was seeking feedback today and going forward, this is not a done deal. Is there anything that you want to question? Does the strategy, is it going to include X, Y, and Z? We can answer that now. I think we've covered a few of these already, but I know people have spent time looking at this, so if there's anything else you want to talk about what's here.
I just have a quick
Yep.
process question. Maybe this is for Leslie. So the actions, we haven't put those in place yet, but I'm confident we're thinking about them.
Yes.
So from a process standpoint, lay out actions in these Chapter 7 subsections, right? And then prioritization comes later and costing comes later. Because ultimately, right, this is fabulously comprehensive, but also really ambitious list of things. And prioritization is really going to matter. So I'm just trying to understand, like, will we have a swing at the actions before prioritization becomes the target, I guess, or the next step? I'm just trying to figure that out. Actions to prioritize actions.
The
The
prioritization.
strategies, yeah, the strategies will be prioritized. The actions are the how you're going to do the strategies. So
Right.
it's less important to prioritize the actions than the strategies.
Okay.
So we'd like your support on prioritizing the strategies.
Okay. And so, from an order standpoint, prioritization is next then for the strategies?
Yeah, we'd like to confirm and validate that those are the right strategies and then prioritize those. We will be creating the actions for each strategy concurrently because they can move around depending on where you want, what the first, second, third priority is, but the actions will always remain under each one of the strategies. So those two things can happen concurrently.
And when you say order of magnitude cost estimates, to me, that means like we're just going to have buckets. This is going to cost 1 million, this is going to cost 10 million, this will cost 100 million. Like, are we
It's
talking
going to look more
that
like
broad
dollar
brush?
signs. Like
Okay.
this is like $1 sign is least expensive, $3 signs is most expensive. I mean, there's 5 to 9 strategies per priority, and some of these are multi-step strategies. So if a developer comes in and wants to develop housing, there's not a way for us to be able to cost estimate what that development is. But if there are, there's a cost related to a specific thing, we can make some assumptions about, is it going to be a lot or is it going to be a little? And if the city decides to take that on as a priority, then we can, that's after the plan has been adopted, then a separate cost estimate will need to be created for each one of those.
That makes sense. Okay.
Each one of those things. Because it needs to be coordinated with the CIP, right, and the budget. So if you want to make, for example, a trail extension, this is something that's going to have to be budgeted into, the CIP and Public Works. There's a whole separate budget for that. Maybe you want to apply for some grants. Engineering drawings and cost estimate will need to be created as a part of that grant. But if you say this is our first priority, after the plan is adopted, then the actions will help you line up what needs to happen afterwards.
So I would like to add that I'm following up on Boise's code enforcement, and I would like to see the city invest in also the economic development part of it, new business, old business, vacancies, and our commercial buildings, especially in the entryways into our city, our main streets, Jefferson, Larkin Mall, Chicago Street, but have some more code enforcement, or if there are codes, do we need more codes to make sure that the businesses are really pitching in to make the city look good, but also to help them succeed?
One of the items that I wanted to touch on is specifically about the mobility and access across the city. So transportation mobility, specifically strategy number 4, that discusses a little bit about safety, visibility, and comfort for pedestrians and cyclists. So I think you guys all know that my day job for the county, we did complete a safety action plan for Will County. We took a look at our roadway network, trails, sidewalks, everything, and talked about safety for all users. And it's something that's front of mind for me. It's something that I'm thinking about, how can we meaningfully implement and create changes. So this is probably a little in the weeds, but something that I'd like to see happen at the city level and frankly throughout the entire region is a push towards Vision Zero, establishing a goal of 0 fatalities on our roadway network. And that can be done through a wide variety of things, right? It's education, it's engineering and design that helps promote safety. We recognize that there's obviously some level of human error that can happen, but making sure that our transportation systems are designed in such a way that it's safe for everyone to use. So to me, like, it's great that we have safety listed in one of the strategies, but I think inherently, we all want and we all agree that transportation mobility needs to be safe, right? It's, as someone that's lived here, it's always upsetting to see in the Herald News, see in the paper that there's been another fatality. There's been a crash between a vehicle and a pedestrian, or 2 vehicles where someone dies. And I think that as we talk about the future of the city, of what I want my hometown, what we want our hometown to be, it's inherently safe. So I would really like to see us really lean into that. I think that safety, as we talk about design, is absolutely critical.
And I think that's another key opportunity there to even say, and here's an example of a city who has done that well. You know, every city doesn't get it all right, but like here's a example right here. Here's a link. Here's an email of somebody else who has done that well. I think that would help us even see better and even know what to expect.
Jersey City, New Jersey.
Boom, there it is. See, I didn't even add too much work to you.
All right, anyone else see anything that wasn't reflected as a preliminary strategy? Okay, again, keep looking at this, send me any additional comments you have, and keep elaborating on this document. Thank you, Leslie and Payag and Katrina. So next we'll move on to staff reports. Dustin covered already one of the items. I was gonna mention Urban 3, so I'm gonna scratch that off my list. We have kicked off the Downtown Joliet Equitable Transit-Oriented Development Zoning Project. So this was an implementation component of the adopted ETOD plan, which was adopted last summer, July of 2025. So what this means is that we have a consultant who has been engaged. We have a small steering committee who is looking at zoning in the downtown. We plan to have an open house at some point, potentially in June. Oh, well, it's coming up fast. So we'll see. But there is a goal to get a zoning package to the Plan Commission and then council review by the end of this calendar year. So we would like to see that happen. And again, prior to that, there would be an open house for public feedback on the zoning package before it would even go to Plan Commission. So So that's one major project. We have a lot going on in the community development department. So that's one, Urban 3 is the other. The Interstate 80 Des Plaines River Bridge Community Plan, that is still moving forward. We're working with our consultant, which is CDM Smith right now, on design of a trail network through the South End neighborhood. So heavily involved with our public works engineers right now on cost estimates. So nothing new to really share out at this time. And that project does have a webpage that's linked from our city's overall website if you would like to learn more about that, if you haven't already. We have the Bicentennial Bluffs Choice Neighborhood Transformation Plan project. That is already about halfway through that process. Again, that has its own project webpage. It's jolietchoice.com, also linked from our city's website. They are planning some additional upcoming community meetings for that. I'll try to share those out when the next ones are occurring for that. I think there's one in June. I think that's the next.
It will be June.
Yeah, June 4th.
Yeah.
Yes. May is coming up, and that is the National Historic Preservation Month, which I think many of you know it's near and dear to my heart as the staff liaison preservation planner here at the city. So what that means, I wanted to just report out that we have an open call for nominations for the annual Historic Preservation Award. So this is, I think it's the 20th year that the city has done this. The close of the nominations is April 10th. So if you know of a project that's been completed that has kept the spirit of preservation standards, or if you know someone who has really been dedicated to the field of historic preservation, I encourage you to submit a nomination. And then finally, happy to report that the Joliet Area African American Historic Context Study is heading towards the finish line. So staff has reviewed an internally a draft. We have a consultant firm who's making edits to that, and then we have a steering committee that'll review the second draft, and then then we'll be seeking public feedback on the draft document. So we're expecting to close that project this summer. So I think end of July-ish. Any comments on the projects that I just mentioned? Okay, and then I want to say we have a new administrative assistant, Kelsey Karpinski. So she replaced Lauren Helland, who now works in our city clerk's office. So we're excited to welcome Kelsey to the community development department. So you'll be seeing her from now on. Lauren's still here, so hopefully you'll see her too. Thanks, Kelsey. Of course, Ray. Thanks, Ray, for helping out today. Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Any comments from anybody? Other topics that you think we should cover or haven't covered? I have one I'd like to bring up on the communication side. A lot of it's about outreach, right? There are a lot of neighborhood meeting groups or associations, sorry. Bicentennial Bluffs, the Cathedral, Collins Street, Cunningham, Forest Park, Fairmont, and others. All of these groups hold regular meetings. And I think it would be something that all of us should consider is taking one or two of them and going to those meetings and providing them with an update on where the plan is at this point, encouraging them, if they haven't been engaged, to get engaged, because there's lots to be done yet, and we need lots of input yet. We can send a list to you, and you can check one. I've done City Center Partnerships Board. I've done the Silver Cross Hospital Healthy Community Commission, which was developed as a result of the hospital move and pretty much focuses on District 4 and 5 in the city. The Joliet Region Chamber, I spoke to their Government Relations Committee, and the Latino Economic Development Association, I spoke to them as well. I think I would encourage you, once you get the list, if you know anyone or you know any of those areas and you want to go out and do it, it would, I think, be very helpful, because the question would be how many individuals in those different organizations know that this is even going on. And we need to reach out to every point possible. And Jane, in the next email to the group, if we could send that list and just simply ask them to get back to you. If you can't do it, I get it. But we'd like to try to get everyone on the list checked so that we know someone's going to talk to them. And if you see something on the list, or you don't see a group that you know exists that's not on the list, serve that one up, because the communication of this will help us get the input from all the different perspectives in the community. And I think that would be a good thing for us to do. And enough said.
Well, just to piggyback on that, Jim, I appreciate the emphasis on the communication, because if we don't communicate it, people will create their own narrative. So it's better to have the information from the group than for people to create their own. Just a quick little public service announcement. On the 18th of this month, we will have our community open houses at the Old Hufford and the Old Gompers. One last chance for community members to walk through the old buildings, be sentimental, and then go away, because we're going to knock them down this summer. But God bless. So April 18th from 10 to 12, both those schools will be open for folks to walk through one last time. And it's just, we'll have some students and some staff just doing some little guided tours through. Our foundation is going to be selling T-shirts and raffle tickets and to support the foundation, and it'll be a great opportunity to do that. We've also scheduled, because we did, the board did decide to close Marshall Elementary School, so we will do a similar type open house over there at the end of May, on May 27th, in the evening from 4:30 to 6, just to walk through one last time. We're not demoing that building. We're going to try to sell it, hopefully. But and then in August, we'll be doing our ribbon cuttings for the new Hufford and Gompers. So a lot of great activity. We're starting another construction project over at Jefferson Elementary on Glenwood, breaking ground on the last day of school on June 2nd, to add a gymnasium and 4 classrooms there. That was the third part of the referendum that we asked for the taxpayers to pass, and so we're following through on those obligations, and that'll be done by the end of the following school year. So lots of good things happening in that regard across the school district. So I welcome you all to come to those community open houses. It'll be nice. Thank you.
Jim, I have one comment. You had brought up Mayo Clinic. You guys are all familiar with Mayo Clinic, probably considered the best hospital in the world. Mayo Clinic was originally St. Mary's Hospital. And not sure how many of you know it, but the founder of St. Mary's Hospital, which became the Mayo Clinic, that nun served 13 years in Joliet. Her incredible tenacity started Guardian Angel Home.
Sister Mose.
Mother Alfred Mose. But she started a religious order in Joliet. She developed the Franciscan order to thrive and end up educating people in 5 states. Women from throughout the country came to Joliet to work under her tutelage and learn. The point I'm making, Jim, she got kicked out of Joliet, went up to Rochester and did the same thing, initially in education, building schools, but her and the sisters scrimped and worked their butts off to make that hospital the world's best, along with the Mayo brothers. I'm just saying that should be our goals too, on how to make Joliet better. So that's where I want to be.
Good historic commentary, and yes, it does point forward.
I'd just like to follow up on our Civic Bee. The Chamber is hosting for the first time. We are a regional host. And we have our regional competition on April 28th at Lewis University at the St. Charles Borromeo Center. We have 20 finalists that will be competing in a live competition. And thank you to some of the judges in the room. Hugh, thank you. And Steve's wife and Elaine, thank you to some of our judges. But it would be great if we could have some of the community there. It's at 4 o'clock. And it shouldn't be too long, but 6th through 8th graders again. There's students from as far as Naperville, Wheaton, quite a few from Plainfield. We have Laraway School represented. So it's a great mix.
The date and time again?
April 28th at 4 p.m. So would love to see anyone who would like to see some amazing students compete. We're pretty excited, a little nervous. It's our first one, but we've gotten some good guidance.
Any other comments? Hearing none?
No, I just got one thing, just one announcement. Will County and Joliet is in a period right now where we're gonna see a lot of growth, economically, specifically on the construction side of things. I would just like to extend an invitation to all of you and to anybody that you know who may be interested in a career in the trades, not specifically as an electrician, it could be any trade. Recently, what I've been doing, I've been doing a lot of recruiting. I'm doing walkthroughs to our new training facility that we just opened up a year and a half ago. Reverend, I'm sure you mentioned that, you have a lot of young people in your church. I could do this one-on-one. You can bring a group. I'm meeting with some parents on Friday that are going to bring a young man to our training facility. So I would just like to extend that invitation to all of you, or if you can put somebody in touch with me, put someone in touch with myself who may be looking at a career in the trade. So
Good. That's a good thing.
Great.
Because we got all this building coming, we're going to need capable people to do that work.
yeah, just last year we started getting younger as a local, so we're looking at growing. We have about just over 200 apprentices right now in our program, and I'm hoping by the end of this year we're going to be at about 300.
That's great.
Outstanding.
So
AI doesn't take those jobs.
no, we build AI.
Yeah.
We build it.
Oh, good answer, Juan. That's awesome.
Yeah, we build that infrastructure.
So, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
We still have
Second.
public comment.
Seconded?
Motion,
You still had public
Second.
comment, but that's
Okay.
okay. There was public.
Yeah.
we have a motion.
Okay, we're still in public comment.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Ray. Is there anyone here who would like to speak under public comment? Seeing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So motion. Second.
Motion?
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor of adjourning? Any abstains, any noes? Okay, well, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.